Okay, let's move on. We want to keep the content moving and fresh. You have demanded that we cover 4 topics, and that's what we're going to set out to do. So, Fan Pulse Lap 2, you have voted, we have listened. Let's spotlight club rivalries, gents, is what we want to talk about. So in the past, British Speedway steeped in lots of history, lots of clubs have come and gone. Sadly, we have lost, some of the derbies involving Coventry and Birmingham and Wolves and Leicester. There was the Black Country rivalries, Cradley were in that mix as well. Bristol Newport no longer, Redcar Newcastle no longer, Peterborough Ipswich no longer. But that said, we are where we are, and we do still have, to some extent, some rivalries based on geography and history. So my question to you, let's look back to yesteryear first of all. So in terms of when you guys were riding, what was, in your own opinions, the fiercest, the most atmospheric club derby that you were involved in? Stuart Robson, I'll let you kick off.
Probably the one that sticks out most for me, I did it when I was 16, I think it was. I did a show, loan period with Edinburgh. And Edinburgh and Glasgow had made I think it was the Knockout Cup final. And the rivalry there was and the atmosphere was great. I got brought in for the last month of the season. It was either 93 or 94, it was either 16 or 17. And yeah, that was probably one of the standout ones that I remember most. It was great. Unfortunately, I didn't do very well. I worked for Edinburgh, and unfortunately, we lost Glasgow.
It wasn't so unfortunate, Stuart. It wasn't so unfortunate.
But yeah, it was good. It was good fun, and yeah, it was great to be part of. And it was my short period with Edinburgh team was great. I actually really enjoyed that, and I went to the end of the season doing stuff. And
of all the clubs you've ridden for, and of all the derbies that you could have called out, I wasn't expecting that, Stuart Robson. I've got to say, I'm pretty chuffed that you called that one out, but that wasn't what I expected you to say.
Well, there's been a lot over the years, and I mean the Coventry, Wolverhampton have had some great ones. Newcastle, Middlesbrough, Redcar, they've had some great ones as well with each other. So just that one particular one stands out. Probably it's because it was a cup final.
Yeah.
That was probably why it stands out more as much. But the Coventry Wolves, we had some great meetings there, and there was some great rivalry and great banter between the fans as well.
I think the Glasgow and Edinburgh did meet in the Phone Sport Knockout Cup final in 1994. Which is probably the one that you're referring to, Stuart. And that was quite a big occasion, and the crowds at both legs was absolutely magnificent. It was a tremendous atmosphere. But thank you, Stuart. Ronnie Correy, what about yourself? I suggest I know which club that you're going to talk about. But what's your recollection of the white hot Speedway derbies, Ronnie?
Well, I've had 2, I can say, really, but the most one, as you probably would know, is our local rival, Cradley. Wolverhampton and Cradley were like war zones, man. It was like, it wasn't going down to have a meeting. It was more like a battle zone, man. It was insane, man. And being 2 Americans on both teams and not one to beat each other, it was just do or die, It was no mercy, man. And if it wasn't just Cradley, it was probably Eastbourne. Me and Wolves were in Eastbourne, but we used to have some battles down there and fights and everything else. Stuart and Oak, and we've had some entertaining runs down there at Eastbourne too. But it's funny, how can it be a local rival for me? Because I guessed it for them so many times, and they used me pretty much as whenever somebody was hurt, I was down there every other weekend. And then I helped to win the Gale Cup one year too. So for somebody that was a local rival, and the next thing I was riding with them a lot. But they were both. But I say Cradley's got to be my stomping grounds. Definitely, with some of the memories around there, and some of the races we had around there was just unbelievable. Simon Cross, Eric Gunderson, Pedersen, Big Owl, Scud Missile. I mean, it was just some Greg and Billy. It was just intense, man.
Some teams and some riders, Ronnie. Happy days. I imagine, Ronnie, if they invented time travel next week, is that where you would hop back to?
Oh, I'd love to go back and do it all again, just to correct a few things in between, that's all.
like not breaking your arm in 1980, whatever it was. Yeah.
I've broken enough between my ankles, my arms, my back. I mean, I've had enough. Man.
Oh, dear.
Enough.
Stuart McDonald, let's bring you on this. So, interestingly, you've heard what the other guys have said, and I'm quite intrigued to see what you're going to identify as, Stewart McDonald.
Well, I think I was actually taking part in that meeting, Stuart Robson. So yeah, we did beat East, thankfully. We did the double that year, and I think we did it both over Edinburgh. So listen, the Glasgow Edinburgh derbies were always classics. You know, I was obviously one half of the fence, and then I was the other half of the fence. So when I went to the other half of the fence, I get more stick from the Edinburgh fans. But the Glasgow Edinburgh derbies they're always going to hold a special place in my heart. Honestly, they were amazing. Never ever any trouble in the sense of, you know, you're fighting and that kind of thing, but the banter between the teams, the tensions, you know, the managers, the coaches, you know, I mean, you all remember Neil McFarlane, you know, he was box office. You know, the guy could wind anybody up. It didn't matter whether they were whatever size, you know, he could wind anybody up, and you know, he used to have some real wind up nights against Edinburgh. So, but I was going to mention, to be fair, it was the Wolverhampton Eastbourne, what Ronnie was saying. That was, we went down there on the bank holiday Monday, and I remember it because the penultimate race, heat 14, myself and Ronnie went out and got a 5-1. So that actually won us the match, and it was maybe a couple of races before that you could sort of see the tension between the fans. But after that race, it erupted. There was almost fisticuffs. I think the mechanics were getting in it. And then we had the return leg the following week at Wolverhampton. And wow, it was just so explosive, you know. I think David Norris was there at the time, Dean Standing, Martin Dugard, some of the talent that was on show. And, you know, when these guys get wound up, it was heated. And that was one for me with Wolverhampton, was the real Eastbourne was just another level. It really was. But number one was Glasgow Edinburgh. You know, I rode for both the clubs. And I was fortunate enough to get abuse from both sides of the clubs. And
I've given you some myself over the years, Stuart.
Do you know what? You probably have. But do you know what? It was great. It was great. And the people to this day, we're still friends. We still got on. We still have a bit of banter. And that's what it's all about. I do think there's a little bit of that missing. When you watch the Speedway now, I do. I think the way it was when we were racing, guys, you know, I mean, I remember bumping into Robbo and Walkabout one year at Cardiff. I remember bumping into Ronnie at a pub in Wolverhampton when, you know, out of the blue, and it's just these sort of nights was what made Speedway, you know, and the rivals and the derbies would be kissing and cuddling after it and having a pint in the bar after it, and that's what it was all about.
Absolutely. You know, and listen, I'm being completely transparent, and I said this in episode 1, you know, putting my colours to the mast. I'm a born and bred Glasgow fan, right, and I always will be. But you know, I am objective enough, and you know, I can see the bigger picture and all that good stuff. But over the years, you know, it's really quite meaningful when Glasgow and Edinburgh clash on track. It could be a challenge match. It could be the playoff final as it was in 2015. It's almost equally as meaningful, and neither club wants to give an inch to their fiercest rivals, and on the terracings, yes, I've had some exchanges with some Edinburgh fans, but at the end of the meeting, we always shake hands, walk off, have a beer together, and at the end of the night, you know, we go home our merry ways quite happily and reconciled with one another, and that's the real acid test, and it's one thing that I absolutely love about Speedway.
Just on another derby was, I rode for Middlesbrough a few years ago, and we did have a derby against Newcastle, obviously. And one thing I must admit the Newcastle boys used to have was songs, and I don't remember them all, but that was one thing that stuck out a little bit from the derby matches, where they're always winding up the riders, whether it be family members, whether it be dogs, whether it be bikes, you know, whatever. The Geordies were quite cute the way they used to do things. They were funny. That was a derby you would actually go and pay money to watch, just because the banter with the Geordies. They were brilliant. They were, and that's another thing that we remember as well from back in the day.
Yeah, you know, in modern day, with Glasgow Edinburgh still a thing, of course it is. You've got Bellevue and Sheffield with the War of the Roses. That I'm quite sure they get quite passionate around beating one another. They meet home and away, I think, on Bank Holiday Monday next week. Leicester and Birmingham, I imagine, has a geographical derby element to it, and you know, Berwick and Redcar have a bit of a thing, I believe. But we've maybe lost some of the more traditional derbies. But as we touched on in episode 2 last week, touch wood as I say it. But realistically, there could well be some 2 or 3, maybe even more clubs being successfully resurrected in the not too distant future. And by crikey, that would be, as I said last week, a real shot in the arm to British Speedway. And if we could resurrect some of the derbies of yesteryear, that would be. How good would that be? How good would that be? All right. Well, listen. Glasgow, Edinburgh appear to be the consensus view in terms of current day rivalries, unless you know different. 360 speedsters. So you support a whole range of teams out there. Write in, text us, send us a voice note. Let us know what in your view is the most passionate, the most meaningful speedway derby of the modern era. Okay, 360 Speedsters, you are aware we are still a relatively shiny and new 360 Speedway entity, doing our best to try and bring you some topical debate and some social media output as well to get across and get involved with and become interactive with. And on that note, I would like to plead with you, please get interactive with us. So it would be hugely appreciated, absolutely sincerely, if you would take a little bit more time just to hit like, to add the odd comment, to do the odd share of any 360 Speedway content that you see posted on your favourite social media platforms. It's nice to know that you're out there, and it's really lovely to get some feedback or some comments. Of course, you know already as to focus and cover a particular topic that we haven't offered to you so far. Please write in, comment against any social media post. We'll pick that up and we'll give that due consideration. And possibly for the last time this week, I'll mention again our dedicated 360 Speedway WhatsApp 0333 772 4046. We're trying to make it most convenient for you to go onto your WhatsApp, send us a text form message by all means, give us some feedback, whatever you want to share with us. And it would be nice, as you know, if we could receive not one, not two, but multiple voice notes. So if you want to be a little bit lazy, just press the record button to send us a voice note, and it saves you typing anything at all. Okay, next thing I wanted to ask you guys around is, so we are a few weeks now deep into the 2025 season. I wonder, guys, if any riders or any particular rider has caught your attention more than others. There's been a few standout individual performances so far. Stuart Robson, I'll come to you first of all.
Yes, so far this year, Dan Thompson. He's made massive improvements over the last couple of seasons, and he's now in the team at Glasgow, I believe, and he's still putting good points together. Very good. He's really caught my eye this year.
Yeah, because Dan, I think at the end of last year, I think he was officially the most improved rider in terms of starting average versus end of season average last year, and there was some questions potentially as to whether he had already peaked. Could he take it up another step? And the early signs, Stuart, are for Ipswich in the Premiership and for Glasgow in the Championship is that he looks capable of doing just that.
Absolutely, and he is doing it at the moment, and good luck to the guy. I really hope he continues doing it, and hopefully brother Joe will follow suit as well, because they were both very close in their level, and at the moment Dan seems to have gone a little bit ahead. I haven't really seen so much of Joe scores as being as good as Dan's at the moment this year, but hopefully there will be, and they'll both they'll both keep going and be top riders.
Absolutely. I seen an interview with Gary May, team manager at Plymouth earlier in the week, and he was talking up Joe Thompson. I think Joe had featured in a last seat decider that won a home meeting for Plymouth over Poole just in the last week or so, and Gary May was accrediting Joe with playing a major role in that, and I think Gary sees Joe as being a big part of the Plymouth push for silverware this season. Stewart McDonald, what about yourself? I know you keep a keen eye on the speedway scene. Any particular rider or riders who have impressed you already this year?
Hans Nielsen's been looking really good. To be honest, Tom Brennan, I watched him at the start of the season, and I've been keeping an eye on his scores, and I know that he's always sort of been on the edge. over the last couple of seasons. He was at Glasgow, obviously had some great years there. And now watching him, I watched him on Monday night as well, and I think this could be the year that Tom really does break through, because I think the way that he's performed, he's been one of the most consistent English riders out there for the last sort of 3 or 4 years, and just on the edge of a sort of Grand Prix-ness. So I think that Tom could step up this year. I really do. Just on what Robbo was saying there, Dan Thompson, I mean, he looks like he's going to go to another level. Robbo, he is, his scores and watching him on BSN, he's fast. He's really fast, and it's good to see so many young Brits coming through. Not so many Scottish, unfortunately, but you look at some of the young lads coming through, and the Thompson boys, the Cook brothers, and I think that the future for British Speedway is looking really positive. I really do. You've got the old timers in there, if you like, Dan Bewley, Robert Lambert, you've got Tom Brennan, you've got even Chris Harrison, and still going. Chris Harrison performing the way he is. You just think, I seen him at reserve on Monday night, and I thought, well, he's going to earn a few quid tonight, reserve, but no, I think for me, Tom Brennan, definitely.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to give a shout out for the second week in a row to Cooper Rushton, who's a young lad who's making real good strides at national development level, and he got as far as the under-21 semi-final at Plymouth last night. I think he crashed out. He certainly didn't make the cut to the final, but Cooper Rushton, I'm across your social media, I'm watching what you can do on a bike, and keep up the good work, Cooper Rushton. Ronnie Correy, what about yourself? Any riders that have impressed you already?
To come out of that little game a little bit, but I've been watching Tom the same, Tom Brewman. I've been hanging around with him a little bit over at Craig's house, and gone with him to a couple times to the races and stuff. So yeah, I think he's got a lot more to come, and I think he's very eager and very keen to prove himself, because he had a bit of an up and down year last year. So yeah, I think he's really up for it this year. When I was over there not too long ago, Christmas time, he was keen up, bikes were ready, he was in the garage, he was fiddling, he's itching, you can see it. So it'd be good to see if you have a good year. Okay.
Let's have a little bit more chat about Tom then, because all three of you guys have picked him out and obviously rate Tom, and I've seen him firsthand at Glasgow over a couple of seasons, and he's certainly he's a young lad. He's still a young lad, clearly, but already think of some of his achievements. He has actually manfully contributed to Great Britain Team GB winning the Speedway of Nations for the first time, at the National Speedway Stadium a few seasons ago. He's won a league title with Glasgow, thankfully, and he done the same with Poole last year. He's already riding out in Poland. He's carving out a career path on the continent. And he had the maturity, I think, this year to stand down the championship. So it's almost like already he's ticked the championship off as mission accomplished. He's now focusing on only the top flight in the UK, and his next destination, I'm quite sure, will be top flight in Poland.
Yeah, he's definitely one to watch without a doubt. He's a very, very good rider. He's got a good head on his shoulders. And again, good luck to the guy. Hopefully he will rise right to the top, and he'll follow in the footsteps of Woofy and any other British guys who've won the world title, and more than one occasion.
Stuart McDonald, just to bring you back in, I'm sure you'll have watched episode 2. You didn't feature in it, but you'll be aware that we did a bit of a spotlight on British youth, and we were all praising Carol Johnson too. We were praising the efforts of Neil Vatcher and the Team GB setup, but by and large, and there does seem to be a rich conveyor belt of young British riders across different age categories, different engine size categories, but all highly encouraging. And the British Youth Championship, which navigates all of the Premiership and Championship clubs, is a real showcase, and it has been for some years now, of the up and coming talent and the dedication that the riders and their families already have to making Speedway a career for these lads.
I think when you look at some of the talent we've got coming through, again, what you just said, I agree with Derek. There's a rich conveyor belt there. I think when you look at the opportunities when we were younger, Robbo. You know, our training tracks was Linlithgow or the beach. You know, we didn't have. If you look now, you've got a lot of clubs that have got the junior tracks in the middle. Which is something that we never had, you know, so we sort of grew up without that. And you look at the young lads now, I mean, I speak regularly to Stuart Coleman, and he obviously looks after the sort of Asfield Giants. And you look at some of the riders, I mean, he talks about some of the young boys, and I mean, obviously the Piper brothers, you know, they're two brothers that are destined for big things, you know, no doubt about it. You've got Steen, I think, who's the younger one that, you know, you look at some of his times when he wins races. And you've obviously got Ace. I think obviously Ace has went through a bit of a tougher time. But again, you know, when he was at Glasgow, he was given an opportunity, and that's great experience for these boys, you know. But I think the way that Thatcher and all the boys, you know, the ex-riders, it's, you know, Ollie Allen, all the boys, Scott Nichols, I mean, Paul Hurry, you know, they're all doing these schools now, yep, and encouraging a lot of young riders. And it seems to have another level. You know, we when we grew up, we had, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 Scottish riders, but we had one training track. Whereas now, we've not any Scottish riders, but we've got training tracks everywhere. There's still some young Scottish lads, you know, still 12, 13, 14, that'll come through. But I think that the way that the British Speedway is heading is great, because I think the future's bright for all the young boys.
Absolutely, it's a lovely success story for British Speedway, and yeah, more power to the elbow of Neil Thatcher and the others. The under-21 British final is going to be held at Glasgow in a couple of weeks' time, in mid-May, and I think it's the third successive season it's been held there, and it's a top draw event, I tell you, because these young lads are absolutely committed to getting on that podium and lifting that trophy, which has got so many famous names on it. You know, Gary Havelock and Martin Dugard and Mark Laram, and just to name but 3 riders who once upon a time lifted that same trophy aloft. Yeah, the future's bright for British Speedway, and thanks guys just for picking off some of the riders who have caught your attention.